Hello, hope you're doing well. Today, I wanted to talk about something that's been an issue for me the past couple years. That being health anxiety. If there's anyone who is confused by what I mean, it's literally as simple as the name. I get anxious over my health and how I'm feeling. More specifically, I worry about my heart and having a heart attack. The frustrating thing, well, it's a good thing, but it doesn't make much sense, is that I'm a healthy person. Certainly not perfect, but the way I act sometimes, it feels like I should be dropping over dead at any moment. The actual name for this is cardiophobia, which is a fear of having a heart attack or having heart-related issues. I never knew people had an issue with this until I started looking into it myself to try and calm myself down. This helped me realize that I'm not alone, and a reason why I made this video. Before I get too far ahead of myself, let me just explain what I feel during an attack. Essentially, I get these random heart palpitations or just feel it beating, and then I become hyper aware of my heartbeat. Once I'm too aware of my heartbeat, then I start to delude myself into thinking something is not right. Most of the time, I think that I'm going to have a heart attack, and other times I think I might have cancer and that's what's causing my problems. Since I start to scare myself that something's wrong, it turns into a perpetual cycle because worrying about my heart makes it beat faster, and then because it's beating faster, I worry even more, and this cycle continues on and on and on until I can get it out of my head and focus on something else. Over the past couple years, I've gotten a lot better at managing my emotions and controlling the anxiety. I'm the type of person who likes to pace around the room and be alone. I hate when people worry about me, so that brings me even more anxiety. Then I start to have thoughts of, if something happens to me, what will my mom do, or what will my dad do, or what's going to happen afterwards? Which is a dumb thought because really, if I did drop dead, then I wouldn't have to deal with it anyways. What made this anxiety worse was that I never really dealt with much anxiety as a kid. I never developed coping mechanisms or ways to calm down, so that happened when I was older. I would say I didn't really start worrying about it until I turned 19. There's definitely a reason why I started feeling this way though. It wasn't just bad luck. The furthest back I can remember being scared about my heart was in 5th grade. I actually completely forgot about this until I started making this video. But basically, I ate really unhealthy foods growing up. I was never in bad shape though. For school lunch, my mom got me a thermal container so that she could put warm foods in there and the food would stay warm. The best was always when she put ramen in there for me because it would really soak up the broth, and those noodles just became, ooh, so good. Another one of my favorites was when she would put bacon in there. Everyone loves bacon, and if you don't, I don't want to talk to you. It was probably my favorite childhood food growing up, and it might still be today. So inevitably, I ate as much bacon as possible whenever I got the chance. I never thought much of it until I was told it wasn't the best for you and it was high in cholesterol, sodium, yada yada yada. None of this really crossed my mind since I was only 11 years old. But one random day in 5th grade science class, we watched that infamous video of the McDonald's pink slime controversy. This was like 13, 14 years ago at this point, so I don't remember exactly what my teacher told me or told the class. But it was something along the lines of him making a comment about bacon and other meats causing heart attacks, blocking the arteries. Well, as an avid 11-year-old bacon eater, I got terrified thinking I was going to get a heart attack if I kept eating bacon. I got horrible anxiety from that and refused to eat any more bacon. At that point, I wasn't actively scared of having a heart attack, but the bacon itself scared me. So it took me a very long time to start eating it again. Since bacon was the trigger at that point, I didn't really think about having a heart attack much after that, at least until I turned 16. I had one of my random yearly checkups at the doctor's to get a physical. I didn't really think much of it when I went in there, but once he started doing all the tests, he took my blood, did the blood pressure. He told me that my blood pressure was pretty high for a 16-year-old. He was worried about it enough to have me try a small dose of blood pressure medication and was telling my mom and I all about what could happen if it stayed high for an extended period of time. Things like hypertension and like an enlarged heart or something like that. He mentioned something about having a possible condition I could have had or gotten if I kept it high for a while. I can't remember at this point, my memory's not very good. When I first learned about this, I was pretty freaked out for a good while. Not too long after the doctor's appointment though, I was taking a nightly shower and started feeling a sharp pain in my lower chest. Not knowing any better, and with recent news of my blood pressure being high, I started freaking out. I literally hopped out of the shower soaking wet and laid down on the ground butt-ass naked on my towel in a fetal position. That was my first ever panic attack, and it wasn't my proudest moment. But I had no idea what to do, so I just laid there and focused on breathing, trying to unscare myself through my thoughts. The damage was already done though, and I just let time pass to feel better. Like I mentioned earlier, I hate people worrying about me, and I don't know, I just don't like to show vulnerability. so I've never actually told anyone about this before. In my later years, I realized what both of these were. My blood pressure being high at the doctor's was most likely due to white coat syndrome, which was just when someone's blood pressure spikes when being taken by a doctor due to anxiety, and the pain I was having, I believe, was just some indigestion or like heartburn or something like that. One thing that occurred during this panic attack, and something that's doomed me to this day, is that I looked up what the symptoms of a heart attack were. This is something I wish I could erase from my head. Since I know possible signs of a heart attack now, which per Google is a lot of different things, I think every time there is something even a little wrong with me, it's a damn heart attack. After I calmed down and that panic attack ended, I dwelled on it for a bit, but after a month, I moved on and didn't really think about it at all. A couple years later, though, I started smoking weed. Well, really, it was a dab pen. It was great at first, a nice blissful high. But one of these highs, I had a bad anxiety and thought I was dying. It was actually from a blunt I snuck into a Logic and Wiz Khalifa concert. I don't know where my boy got his weed from, but my god was it strong. It was just a sense of dread and doom, which was as pleasant as it sounded. The issue with this is that I thought I was going to die of a heart attack, which I didn't really have any rhyme or reason to believe this, but I did. After getting that high, it was almost a certainty that I would have some anxiety for the first 15 minutes getting high the following times after that, which it didn't really stop me from smoking a lot. This wasn't an issue though, since it was only when I got high, and once I overcame the first 15 minutes of a little bit of anxiousness, I had a great time. I wasn't one of those people who was high 24/7, but I would usually do it at least once a night for a while. Now this next thing is what really put the nail in the coffin for me, because so far it's been pretty sporadic and nothing really crazy. This was back in college in 2019, and I bought a Juul. All my friends did it, and I figured I would get one myself since I was just smacking theirs all the time. Yeah, that only took 4 years to stop doing. Please don't vape if you don't do it already. Anyways, buying this vape was the absolute worst thing I could have done regarding my anxiety. It guaranteed every single high would be filled the whole time with anxiety and just feeling my heartbeat for 2 hours straight, leading me to stop getting high altogether for a pretty long time. Something I quickly learned when I got my physical done 3 months after vaping was just how much it raised my blood pressure. I went into my primary care doctor for a physical, and it was so bad he wanted me not to vape for a day before going back to see the difference. Well, when I went back a week later, my blood pressure was literally normal. So every time I hit the vape, in the back of my mind, I always thought about my heart and my blood pressure being super high all the time. Surprisingly enough, it wasn't until 2021 when it caused my first bad panic attack when it wasn't high. It was just a random night, and I felt a little twitch in my chest area, and I felt like something dull was pressing on it. I went ballistic. I was in full-blown panic mode, pacing around my room, talking to myself, putting YouTube videos on to try to calm down, just anything to get my mind off the idea of having a heart attack. At this point in my life though, I just didn't have the experience of panic enough to know that it was just in my head, so I truly thought I was having one. No matter the justifications I thought to tell myself, it just wasn't enough and I had to force myself to sleep to get through it. This panic attack lingered my anxiety for a couple days, and even affected me at work for a bit, but it went away decently fast. A side note about this time period was that I was the unhealthiest I have ever been in my life. I weighed about 200 pounds, got horrible sleep, drank a lot of coffee, ate fast food every day, and was vaping a lot. And I mean a lot. I'm going to go more into detail about that in a later video, so keep an eye out for that one. But basically, overall, everything a person should not be doing to have a heart attack, I was doing. This fact made the thought of having a heart attack way more realistic, and that means I couldn't really fight it off as well mentally. I couldn't just tell myself I was just making it up because there were a lot more factors that were supporting that I could have one. But the good thing was this was almost summertime, and once the nice weather comes out, I usually feel a lot better in general, getting all that vitamin D and heading down to the shore. Summertime is the one time of year where I feel my best almost every year, except that year of course because I had another panic attack in August, very similar to the last one. But these attacks continued after that at least once a night for a whole month. Then they started to become more sporadic, but they were still happening. It was very frustrating since after a while, I knew nothing was wrong, but I just couldn't control my anxiety. There was one day it got so bad, I literally went to urgent care just to get an EKG done because I was so worried about my heart. Everything was normal and healthy, which was reassuring, but it didn't really stop the anxiety from happening. These attacks have gone on and off since that time. I ended up quitting vaping in February 2023, almost 2 years ago at this point. Before I quit though, I genuinely thought most of the time these attacks indicated something more than just anxiety, even when all the evidence suggested that it was just anxiety. What made me finally realize it was just in my head was when I started to get panic attacks even when I wasn't vaping anymore. Part of this was the fact that I worried about the lingering consequences of vaping, but considering I've had a couple attacks in the past 2 weeks, I know that's most likely not true. The worst one I've had to date was 1 year ago, and sort of influenced my path to go back to college, funnily enough. I decided to start buying weed gummies from the dispensary just to see what would happen. At that point, it was a year ago since I stopped vaping, and I felt like it was a good place to try getting high again since I did always enjoy it. The first couple times in a long time, I didn't get anxious while getting high, and it was very pleasant. I could play video games or watch TV without worrying about anything and not worrying about my heart exploding. You probably know where this one is going to head. One night, about the 5th time doing it, I ended up eating one, and not long after that, I was panicking. Normally, I could handle it and just wait it out. That's what I usually did. Put it on a YouTube video, try to do some stretching or moving, and just hang out for a bit. But this one was really bad, way worse than the other ones I ever had before. And I think I thought this because I was high at the time. It was midnight at this point, so I was worried if I did end up having one, then no one would know until the next day, therefore leaving me to probably die, with no chance of recovery. Like I mentioned earlier, I never told anyone about my anxiety problems. Eventually though, it got so bad, I reluctantly had to wake my mom up to comfort me. Trust me, this is the last thing I wanted to do, especially because she didn't know I was getting high again, so I don't think she was thrilled about that in the first place. So I ended up waking her up, and we just talked. I calmed down after a while, and since I was still high, I just rambled about life and how I was depressed and just felt like shit overall. It was a nice bonding moment, actually. That was the last one that truly got me bad. I've had some smaller ones, but when I'm not under the influence, I can pretty handedly control and deal with it. Also, I haven't gotten high since then and don't really plan on doing it ever again. So why did I make this video? Honestly, I don't really have a great reason. In a perfect world, I would like for people who also struggle with this problem to see this and hopefully encourage them, but I'm not that much of a narcissist. I really made this video just to vent. The past 2 weeks, I have felt like shit and anxious and just wanted somewhere to talk about it. I don't really have a person to talk about this issue with since I don't tell anybody anything, so I went ahead to do the logical thing and vent to the whole internet. Now, if I was a narcissist, I would maybe give a couple words of advice to those who struggle with panic attacks. Since I'm not a narcissist though, I will instead just tell you what I've done to try to help myself. The biggest thing that's helped me was getting back into shape. This hasn't been just going to the gym and working out, but has mainly involved eating healthier foods and doing a lot of walking. The wintertime is an awful time of year for staying in shape. Winter depression is real and very strong. This is where walking comes in. Days where I sit on my ass and don't move at all throughout the day are usually the days I get the most anxious. If I don't get up early in the morning and start moving, then there is a way higher likelihood of me being anxious all day. The hardest thing about getting healthy has been the fact that having anxiety about my heart is not a good combo doing things that actively raise your heart rate. Part of it is just laziness, but trying to get motivated to work out can be tough when you know you're going to get anxious and possibly get a panic attack from working out. This can be a tough mental hurdle and honestly has been for a lot of times. Because of this is where walking comes in handy so much. Most people can just walk, and even if they aren't doing anything too strenuous, it doesn't really raise your heart rate that much unless you're going for a crazy walk or climbing a high hill. The past 5 months have been good for me since I've been at college and have had to do a lot of walking. The attacks I've faced have a lot more to do with being alone and knowing nobody would be able to help me if something did go wrong. The next thing that's really done wonders for me is stretching. Stretching is very therapeutic. Feeling the pull on your muscles and focusing on your breathing is calming. It's not doing full-on yoga, but it's pretty similar to it. Doing this has released me from anxiety so many times I cannot count. My favorite is the styrofoam cylinder that I have where I will lay on top of it and roll my back out back and forth. This cracks my back and really works the muscles that are tight back there. Highly would recommend doing this, even if you don't get anxious. Another way I calm myself down is to just distract myself. This can be playing video games, watching YouTube, or even writing out scripts. When I first started getting panic attacks back in 2021, I binge watched all of Summoning Salt's YouTube videos. I will never forget that time period because his channel really helped me get my mind off the impending doom I believed I was facing. My belief is that if I was truly having a problem with my health, I wouldn't feel normal if I was not thinking about it. When I'm going through stretches of anxiety, I'm constantly feeling for my pulse in my neck or wrist. which will make a person go crazy. I know smartwatches can monitor your BPM and get good data on your heart, but I've avoided this like the plague because I know I would become obsessed with it. Through these three things and some yearly physicals, I sort of have my anxiety under control. I know there are some anti-anxiety medications I can get for myself, but I'm a strong believer in not depending on drugs to hide issues. I'm not anti-medicine or anything like that, but I would prefer not to mask my pains or problems with band-aids and try to address why it's happening in the first place. Of course, sometimes you have to do this, there's no other choice, and if you do, then by all means use every tool at your disposal, but for me, I'm not there yet, so I don't. Even though I said all this, I'm no doctor, so I may be the stupid one here. If you feel there's a true problem, don't just write it off like nothing's wrong and make sure with a professional that there are no problems. It took me a long time to confirm that I was okay, so certainly make sure you are too. I'm not a big mental health guy, but take care of yourself however you deem necessary. Other than that, I don't believe I have anything else I wanted to add. If you have any experiences similar to this one or have some advice, I would absolutely love to hear it in the comments. If you listen to me talk about myself for this long, thank you very much, and have a great day.